Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, today was meant to be the day the Chancellor delivered the first post-Brexit budget. Instead, a general election is underway. With Labour and the Conservatives both promising to boost spending on public services, a leading economic research group, the Institute for Fiscal Studies, has released its analysis of how the public finances are doing. Our economics editor, Faisal Islam, has more.
Call it the budget that never was, due today, but cancelled by the Chancellor alongside the key update to forecasts for borrowing. Others have done those calculations, and they point to a rather different argument over tax, spend and borrowing during the election campaign.
First up, here's the existing official forecasts for borrowing over the next 5 years. They come from March, and you'll see a low deficit, way lower than the 100 billion plus we had a decade ago, basically falling pretty much to zero. And here are what the forecasts could have been, according to the IFS, if the budget had happened today. Much higher in every year. In fact, the deficit staying at around 45 to 50 billion pounds all the way out. Let's focus on the current fiscal year, 55 billion pounds. About half of the increase over the past few months comes from an accounting change to the way that student loans are perceived to be likely to be written off. Then there is the extra spending at spending review on police and schools, and there's also an adjustment for a forecast of lower growth. The question for all the main parties is whether a deficit like this into the future is even considered a problem anymore.
Let's take a look at the existing plans for day-to-day spending over the next couple of years. Up and away in health, education, Home Office, prisons. You'll be hearing a lot about this 2-year period from the Prime Minister. But looking at the rest of the last decade of spending cuts, it's a different story. Health was spared and is up since 2010, but education spending is still down on 2010 even after the planned rises. And while we will hear a lot about 20,000 new police officers, this chart shows what caused 21,000 to lose their jobs. Some departments, such as Justice, responsible for prisons, still down in funding by over a fifth.
But you're also going to hear a lot about a different form of government spending on infrastructure, on the future, on building up the assets of the nation. Investment spending by the tens of billion, or perhaps by the hundreds of billion.
And while that normally would have been prevented by existing rules to limit the national debt, today's missing budget was set to change them anyway. The main political parties now all agreeing that the UK should take advantage of cheap international borrowing costs to invest more. A new election campaign means new rules on budgets too. Faisal Islam, BBC News.
Now, throughout the election, our fact-check team will be examining the claims made by all the major political parties and holding them to account. We will report what they find. Labour have made a new claim, which they say is from a calculation from a researcher featured in a recent dispatches on the NHS. Aisha Tull has been looking into it.
Labour have unveiled this ad. A blue bus with a big claim about the NHS. They say 500 million a week will be sent to America. Seem familiar? Well, you might remember this infamous red bus wheeled out by Vote Leave during the EU referendum. The claim that £350 million a week went to EU membership was shot down by our fact-checkers at the time. So what about Labour's blue bus? They're claiming that the Conservatives are going to send £500 million a week to Donald Trump. How? They say the NHS could pay a lot more for medicines made in America, where drug companies charge much higher prices. Now, it's true, Boris Johnson's government wants to do a trade deal with the US after Brexit, but the British government has repeatedly said that it will never sign up to a deal that hurts the NHS financially.
We hope to get going on that, always remembering that the NHS is not for sale, but everything else, because there's a huge amount we can do.
The 500 million a week figure is what it could cost hypothetically if our health service suddenly started paying American prices. There is a House representative trying to put a bill through Congress forcing foreign countries to pay for US drugs at the same price as Americans. supposedly levelling the playing field, but it's not clear the bill will go through. So Labour's claim is unproven, and Donald Trump's America still seems a long way from getting $500 million a week.
I should tell him.